This country. Exactly. It will be finished.
Exactly.
It will be finished unless people wake up.
So what they've done now, right? So basically, once they threw me in jail, I came out. I lodged a judicial review here against the judges who put me in jail on fraudulent documents without legal representation. 22 laws were broken, putting me in jail. Christine will tell you, and it was because our friend Michael over here was he was facing assault charges up in the CCJ, and he'd been forced to go up there twice. Hiding in the back room with his wife. Him and 3 of his colleagues were up there, and the Times covered the story. We had the prosecutions going. We had started them, and the next hearing was due on the middle of May in 2016, and by the 6th of May they had me in jail. And then the case against Michael McGrath and his colleagues from the Bridewell for criminal assault. And I'm telling you now, guys, I've already had 1 operation. I'm waiting on a second one still for the injuries caused, a broken thumb. And then they went into the court afterwards and erased the evidence off people's phones. They took people out of the court and said to them, let's have a look at your phone there. People thought they were going to talk to them about their own cases. And they deleted the evidence. That's 10 years in jail for anybody else, guys. 10 years criminal damage. We reported them to GSOC. We just reported them to everyone. Huh? Yeah, absolutely. Oh, there's loads of crimes in there.
Yeah, but what Bully Boy McGrath didn't know when he deleted them videos, you can retrieve them.
Yes. Yeah, well, actually, no, we had witnesses come forwards and tell us that they were willing to testify against them. So they knew if the case went ahead up in the CCJ in 2016, that 4 guards, they would have had to face, they might have been dismissed, or they might have faced jail terms for what they'd done. So they couldn't have that happen. I was lifted off the train coming from the Supreme Court. They said to me, you missed a hearing today in Castlebar. It was a complete lie. There was nothing. Yeah. No, there was nothing scheduled. Trust me, guys. It wasn't even on a scheduled court hearing date.
Right.
Totally made up. And we've got phone records to prove that the guards called me at 11 o'clock that morning. They called me here when I went to get the phone records. McGrath, this judge, he preserved them, but he wouldn't have them released. But what he didn't know was we had 2 phones. And my second phone had proof that the guards in Castlebar had called me at 11 o'clock that morning. And I clarified with them, no, the hearing's not till Thursday, blah, blah. They tried to deny that later. Right?
Karma will get them.
Yeah, but I've got them, and I'll put them up. Maybe you have to write.
Helen Lewis, this is a beautiful country, and they have absolutely destroyed. The Ireland's people's faith have been destroyed with the criminality.
Yes.
And the cowardice. It's absolute cowardice.
It is, and we're relying on these people to protect us. So anyway,
abused our compassion.
For what it's worth, anyway, guys, the story, so that it all makes sense to you. So when I came out of jail, I lodged a judicial review. The reaction of the DPP after 3 months of messing around was to charge me again with another criminal offence of threatening and abusive behaviour. You know why? Because before I went to jail, in frustration, I said to a court service staff, one of the ones involved in erasing the evidence and everything, I said, get my file, Peter. A guy called Peter Mooney, make him famous, get my file. And he says, oh, you have to make it a point. I said, go and get my goddamn file. That's the exact words I used. They're coming after me for a tiger kidnapping type charge that can put you in jail for a year or more, right? So that's the charge that I stopped. I did another judicial review against that in here before McGrath and told him there was a conspiracy to pervert justice. 8 of the people involved in the second charges were involved in putting me in jail the first time. They were erasing evidence again. They were claiming to have documents that, and so on. The usual stuff, the lies and moving it up to Belmullet so that no supporters could turn up, all this stuff. So that has been stayed by a High Court order. Michael McGrath himself wrote a High Court order, said, stop those proceedings. This was when he was on better behaviour. Stop the proceedings until we decide whether or not Stephen Manning gets his judicial review. Well, yesterday, he held a private hearing without notification to me or to anybody else, and he went ahead and threw out the judicial review. Just wait a second, guys. Pure coincidence, that definitely. No, it was a Garda car, I mean, suspicious now, But so he held a sitting this morning at 11 o'clock in an unknown location outside of the county. I can tell you this now because I've just spoken to someone. I won't give them a name because they're being helpful, okay? And he went ahead and read out a judgment. Now, procedurally, guys, so you know, what he's done is shut the case down without following due procedure, without putting me on notification, in between all of the crimes he's committed in between, all right? Meanwhile, we've got criminal charges lodged in the CCJ against him, and those have been sat up there now for over 18 months. They're supposed to be dealt with in one day. And I keep going back and asking, when are you going to move these things? Oh, we're having difficulty finding a judge to deal with these. I bet you are, at the boys' club, But that's not the point. The point is the law is being violated again, yeah?
It's because they think they're above the law.
Well, yeah,
but
they're
then
acting
again,
that way.
a statement needs to be heard by everybody. And these Garda, and especially Mr. McGrath out there, needs to hear this. So did Noreen O'Sullivan and O'Callaghan think that they were above the law. But it took one woman named Gemma O'Doddy to take the two of them down.
The law has to stand up.
Yeah. Well, guys, listen. This is. What they've done now is they've now set me up for the Belmullet case, just like when they put me in jail the first time, for the case to go ahead in my absence, right? All they'll do, they'll fabricate a document afterwards. No doubt, we'll find out. Those of you that were in the court on Tuesday, nothing happened in there except for this Barney that we put up online. There was no procedural issue followed. Nothing was done, right? I wasn't allowed to speak, or when I say I wasn't allowed to, he wouldn't defer to me, and it was my case. That's all violations of procedure. What's going to happen is a document will issue now out of Tuesday, and it'll on the face of it, it'll look perfect. Oh, this is what happened, this is what was said, this is what was done, and it'll all be a lie. But guess what? They'll still move ahead on it. Procedural, yeah? I explained it to someone else. It'd be like you getting a phone call from a restaurant, and they're saying, right, Mrs. Murphy, here's the bill for that fantastic meal you had the other night. And you say, what meal? There. What meal? I wasn't. Oh, yeah, but we booked you in. Yeah? And we served the food. The fact that you weren't there to eat it's not our problem. You're now going to have to pay that bill. And if you don't, we're going to send the boys round and they're going to arrest you for failure to pay your bills. This is what's going on in here, guys. Do you understand? Yeah? And I mean, at some point in the very near future, we're going to have to. And again, I'm no great believer in raising massive crowds and everything. I've seriously thought about maybe even going on a hunger strike or something to get, although that wouldn't probably be a good idea, I'm a little bit older than I look perhaps, but I don't fancy the idea because I think they'd let me starve, to be honest with you, But we've got to raise a fuss about this, and the same with Gemma and John's case in here. We're communicating on a regular basis, but it's gotten completely out of control. And yourself now, if a judge were to come out and order the guards to, let's say, to arrest me, for example, for something, even if they knew that I hadn't done it, and even if they felt uncomfortable about it, this is what we've got to turn that. We've got to try and get the guards and the court service staff and the decent solicitors and barristers and whatever decent judges are in there to stand up to these criminal blackguards. They don't. You see, they're up there in fancy robes and highfalutin titles. I tell you, but they don't deserve our respect. They don't. I wouldn't hire them. This is what I told the judge in Castlebar. I said, if I was a manager in McDonald's, I wouldn't even hire you because I couldn't trust you. I couldn't trust you to flip a burger, honestly. And this is where we're at, guys. And it's one thing, there's a certain satisfaction in seeing them being told what for and calling them diabolical criminal miscreants.
We need a lot more than that.
Yeah, and this is another key, guys. This notion, like I remember now, what was his name? Ben Gilroy, a couple of years ago. He came out lunchtime. He was in a hearing in here, and he referred to them as a Satan worshipping cabal or something. And he was talking about the judges. That got him a couple of months in contempt of court, in jail, right? And I was thinking about this, and the mistake that Ben made was that he just made this generic general statement. We are being more specific. We're naming them. Yeah. And we're saying it. Yes, if you use the term diabolical to define a person's character, what's that? It's a liar, it's a thief, it's a fraudster, it's a parasite, it's a predator, right? That's what these people are. And I have no problem. That's why we publish the books. Name and shame them. And this is why someone said, McGrath, for God's sake, do something about this Manning guy and what he's up to. But we will need support, guys.
You get all the support. You deserve every bit of support.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
You will get every bit of support.
Thank you.
You are not alone, Steve.
Yeah.
I guarantee
because we're taking them on. We've already put them on notice last night.
For everybody here in Ireland.
Yes. And please understand, guys, there's no ulterior motive here. And honest to God, now, this started... I was very surprised at my own tenacity. That's the honest truth. I didn't come into this thinking I'm a tough guy and I'm going to take them on. Not at all. I started, like everybody, thinking if I went to the authorities with valid, legitimate complaints and issues, I'd be not listened to, protected, and the system would kick in the way we're told.
Big mistake.
But you've got to know, every single TD and senator up in the Dáil has been put on notice. At one point, we sent in 160 letters, I think, each individually stamped, every single one personally signed, to everyone, telling them what's going on, putting in flyers in the books, saying, please, we're begging someone to come back to us. And do you know what happened? The Cam Corlea accidentally sent us an email. When I say accidentally, the guy, you know, the short, squat guy. And when I say accidentally, I was thrilled. Oh, great! And it said, "Mr. Manning, if you have information that there's criminal conspiracies going on in the high courts and going on at the Dáil and so on, if you have proof of this, you have to take it to the Garda Síochána." I said, you know, as if.
Well, that's a blessing in disguise, Stephen. You have to make them.
Yeah, but you know what we did? So we took that email and we put it in a registered letter to Drew Harris, along with our evidence. Registered letter. We can't even get a signature out of the post office for that registered letter. Now, I'm telling you guys, this is what we're up against, right? Well, 3 minutes after we got that email, another email came in saying, we retract that former email.
Too
That
late.
was the only response. It's ridiculous.
Stephen,
Absolutely ridiculous.
do you think that this planned, engineered banking crash was designed to put the fear into so many people in and outside power that they'd be afraid to speak up for the Irish people? Do you think that was part of their overall longer plan?
Well, I'll tell you, again, I'm not a financial expert, but there's a few things you learn when you're looking into the reasons for stuff. And I'll tell you something, and we should all be alert to this. I don't know what the solution is, but I'll tell you something. All of the whole COVID phenomenon that we're calling it, okay, just without getting into arguments about is it or isn't it, everything. But the whole COVID phenomenon is, to a greater or lesser degree, it's a smokescreen for the impending financial collapse.
Yes,
now,
it is.
We can't get into it in detail, but I'll just tell you this much. Look into the gold standard, guys, and you'll realise that back in the 60s, Nixon removed the link between money and the gold that was kept in vaults. After that, they just printed money when they needed it, which devalues the money in existence, right? This is simply it. And that's what caused the first banking crash. And at the moment, the only thing guaranteeing the value of our money is confidence in the American economy. And if no, trust me, and it's that nebulous. And if that confidence it goes, then they won't be able to sell their bonds anymore. Nobody will buy them, and overnight, or within a week or two or a few days, everything will collapse, and we'll be forced into a digital currency, which is part of the Great Reset and all that.
This is
anyway,
what they want.
We're working on a book at the moment, Crisis, Colour, Coup, What, How and Who. When it comes out, have a look at it. This explains it. And it explains also how all of our institutions, you see, no, I'm not blaming anyone for this. I'm not even blaming myself. We've all deferred our authority to institutions of the state. And as a result, we haven't developed either the moral courage or the wisdom. I mean, we get angry about stuff, and I wish there was something I could bloody well do, you know, but we haven't developed the skill set to be able to do more or less what we're doing now. Coming right at them and holding them, looking them right in the eyes and saying, you are lying to me, you are deceiving me, I'm not dealing with you anymore. And then you walk out. And this is their response. Set him up, get him in jail, and who knows what might happen then. Do you understand, guys? Yeah?
So you have to support them, Stephen.
Well, I hope so, and I would be asking everyone here. I didn't expect to do this without John and Gemma, but I'd be asking everybody, please watch us closely, because this is a move, an insidious, disgusting, treacherous move, and they don't even care. They don't even care now. Yeah, they're criminal charges sitting up in the CCJ. You know, yeah, absolutely, sociopaths and psychopaths. Their mentality is me, my career, my ambitions, my
money,
power, my money, and whatever bad habits they have in the background. How can we indulge in all this, and how can we keep the stupid, moronic public paying for it without knowing what's going on? And that is basically what's been going on, guys.
The biggest word, by the way, is them being psychopathic. Them and the government.
Yes. Well, it's a self-serving club, guys. I mean, there's a reason. Right? We ran down in Mayo. Now, I've got to say it now, please don't anyone call me a politician, not unless you want to fight, okay? But there was two, on the two last general elections, we ran because it only cost 500 quid to actually get your name in. And we stuck up the posters and we did a campaign. You know, way back in your mind, you're thinking, could it possibly be possible? But now I realise, even if you did, we used to communicate with Claire Daly and Mick Wallace quite a bit, you know. They've got rules set up in the Dáil. It's all nailed down. Even if you got a fire-breathing so-and-so like myself in there, there's almost nothing you can do, because the procedures, even now, reporting this to the Houses of the Oireachtas, to the Justice Committee and the Joint Petitions Committee, you know, they're sending me letters by email that are unsigned, and I'm saying, will you just send me a hard copy so I can put it in my file? They won't do it. You know, then I write back and he goes, we're returning your correspondence to the post. They're putting it in an envelope and sending it back to me instead of following their own procedures.
Because they don't want a paper trail.
No, well, no, it's not just the paper trail. The club has
They don't want to
decided
give you your tools that you are entitled to.
that we are entitled to.
Yes.
Yeah, it's the great lie, and it's this thing they call cognitive dissonance. Now, again, not to get into strange notions, but it's the fact that the lie is so big that we can't see it. And there's decent people in jobs working for the state who go into those jobs with the best of intentions, and maybe some of them are lucky enough to avoid all of this corruption. But I'll tell you what, if they do, that you won't see them getting promoted to the top.
They'll be victims
We said this
too.
a long time ago, and it's not meant as an insult to the guards. We said it a long time ago. If you see a middle-aged guard that is still either a guard or a sergeant or something of that nature, then he's either honest or completely stupid, right? That's the fact, because the ones that we can almost, the list of miscreants that we've come across, and you look at them 18 months later, they've been promoted. You know, the superintendent that covered up for that paedophile judge, if you remember, way back, Brian Curtin. Yeah, and when I say covered up for him, he made a mistake and he issued the warrant against the judge, you know, a few hours after the deadline. There was another 114 or 15 people all got prosecuted, but the judge didn't. And then he hung on there for what, 3, 4, 5 years until his pension kicked in, and then he resigned. You know, and the guard who made the mistake by not serving him the warrant in time, which was the loophole that allowed him to stay in his job, he got promoted. You know, this is. Do you understand, guys? And when you put it in simple, black and white terms, good. This is about truth and lies. Yeah, it's about truth and lies. It's about good and evil. And, you know, and none of us, listen, no one is claiming to be a saint here, right? Absolutely not. We all have our flaws and our challenges in life. But the difference here is people who try or aspire to be good, or are looking for what's the right thing to do here, you know, morally right, even if we're confused about our moral standards. At the fact alone that you're thinking about it, that's what separates us from a lot of these people. They've abandoned it. They've sold their souls to the devil long ago. And all they want is to hold on to their positions of power and authority. And then they will use, unfortunately, the guards, you know, the unwitting guards, you know, the minions in the court service. They're told, hold on to Manning's documents, don't give them to him. Why? Because if he hasn't got his documents, he can't do X, Y, and Z in the court. Yeah? They control it all. That is an act to pervert justice, right? That's, again, 10 or 15 years in jail for us. They just do it because, well, I was just following orders. You know, you don't have to go far to see it. Sorry,
not one decent judge or barrister or lawyer in the whole country.
No, you won't hear me say that. But I'll tell you, I'll give you some examples though. I've got 3 legal aid certificates, right? So I've qualified for free legal aid.
Okay.
I cannot get a lawyer in the country to represent me. No. And this is another thing that McGrath put in his judgment yesterday. Well, one of the lies they told you might have heard of Caro Higgins Solicitors up on Parkgate Street. He's in trouble at the moment because he got into a fight with one of his partners. Right now, listen, he was the top paid legal aid lawyer in the country a couple of years ago, right? What they did in order to try and throw me back in jail, I had to have legal representation, okay? That's the law. You can't, if I'm entitled to it, you've got to give it to me. That's how they got me in jail the first time. I didn't have any. They just threw me straight in jail. So I made a big fuss about it. So they assigned legal representation, okay? They told him to be my legal aid lawyer, but he wrote to me and said, we can't do it, Stephen. It's too far away, whatever the excuses were. Anyway, he couldn't do it. He was never my lawyer. But that didn't stop the DPP's office from putting an affidavit into the High Court, not only claiming that he had been my lawyer for a set period of time, a couple of months. There was a date he came on record, a date he came off record. Why? Because now that I'd had legal representation and it all fell apart, that could be brushed aside and the case could go ahead. It was an absolute lie. Caro Higgins wrote to me and he said, Stephen, I'll clarify to anyone. We were never your lawyer. We were never on the record. So I told the court service up in Ballina when I saw this happening, I said, I'm coming in next Monday, I told them. I'm coming in next Monday to look at my case file to see the papers that prove that I had a lawyer, right? What I didn't tell them was I was driving there already, yeah? And I caught them on the hop. They're here, yeah.
Thanks, Stephen.
All right, we're waiting for German time. Yeah.
You're a legend.
Unbelievable. We're all behind him.
100%.
And you're a great little worker.
Great to see you.
together, John.
Gestapo now. How many
Yes,
have
I
we?
know.
You missed all the fun.
You missed the fun.
Oh, really?
Oh,
There was
Bully
a-
Boy McGrath was throwing his weight about.
Ignored.
We missed him, did we?
Attacking Bridget.
earlier, and we thought they were forgetting
Eight of them.
We're very happy to see
Eight
them
of them,
again.
Gemma.
Oh, there you are.
Yes, I've had a good run at it, lads. You fire away. I didn't expect
At
it.
the age of
Yeah.
6,
Stand
Gemma.
together, stand together.
We want to just start. I just want to say the point we've just been discussing, and it's really, really shocking. There's clearly now a policy within the civil public service not to hire Irish people. Because the people who we've been dealing with up there, lovely, they could not have been nicer, but Polish and English. They are not able to find Irish people to work in the office of the highest court in the land. No, this is a policy, and it's happening throughout our civil service. Irish people are not to be hired where migrants are available, and we know why they're doing this. And as I said, these people could not have been friendlier. In fact, they were much friendlier to us than the 2 Irish people that I met up there last week. Much friendlier. They've closed the office to the public, so we had to sit in the kitchen, which they allowed us to do.
You got a cup of tea?
And we did ask, no, there was no tea available. They didn't want to, you see, all
be a lot
these
of
forms,
complications around the
all
tea,
these
you know.
forms around these courts, everything is everything is electronic. We don't want you in here. You've no business being in here. But generally they were very happy.